Kia ora te whānau, ko Nanaia tēnei. Welcome to Nanaiore, getting things done, making it happen. Now, you'll be wondering, why did I think that a podcast was something I wanted to do? And to be absolutely frank, it was something that people had talked to me about in terms of issues that were happening of the day, the types of debates that needed to happen, and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm going to be very new and raw in terms of how I deliver some of these issues, but I thought what we're missing is the kind of kōrero that you would have around the kitchen table with your whānau or at the marae. You know, when you have a talk about things, it kind of starts in one place and goes to the other. I can remember when I was young and growing up, we used to be in the kauta, and the conversation would move from making a really good toroi to all sorts of things, the politics up at the club, the politics within the whānau on the marae and things like that. So consider Nanaiore as a podcast about everything from the pā to parliament and all things that, yes, are political, but actually within a whānau matter to them and their lives. So we're going to, in this first episode, reflect, and you're going to help me reflect on what it means to be in Parliament, but also life after Parliament. I went through so much, and I want to share some of those things with you in this podcast. So I'm not going to go through a chronology of the things that I did in Parliament, just to say that 27 years in Parliament, I learned a heck of a lot. I learned about what it meant to represent your people, what it meant to be connected, what it meant to ensure that the things that were relevant at home also became issues that I could speak to in Parliament, and vice versa. There were many ups and downs as well. You know, when I think of some of the hardest challenges, trying to understand everything that was happening in Parliament, I just can't put words to some of the hardest challenges. A really good story that I always refer to is one of my first off-the-cuff debates, so to speak. I was sitting in my office doing some work, then all of a sudden I get a call from the whip, and then he said, look, you've got 5 minutes to come down and talk to Rabbit Kalisi-Virus. Now, to be honest, I'm not a farm girl, so I had to check out what was Rabbit Kalisi-Virus, what was happening in the house, and then how was I, from Huntly, Rahui Pōkeka, going to make a contribution on that particular debate. Anyway, long story short, and you can look it up in the Hansards if you really want to, Rabbit Kalisi-Virus was probably one of my most memorable speeches, because it's the kind of speech you wouldn't ever want to give. I think somewhere in that 5-minute speech I even sung O Marapiti, because I didn't know anything about Rabbit Kalisi-Virus but knew I had to make a 5-minute contribution. And then there are the more sobering contributions in Parliament. My maiden speech was, I think, for me, the first opportunity that I could really share a little bit about who I am, where I came from, what was important to me in the communities that I was representing. And in the gallery at the time, I had some aunties and uncles, my mother, some nannies, and then I specifically told my father, look, you can't come down, you'll put me all the way off. So he sat in the office and listened to me on the radio. But my maiden speech was a chance to set out. You know, we were just going into settlement. It was a really controversial topic. People were really, you know, either for it or against it. And for those of you who can link back to that time, you know, my dad was seen as quite a key and pinnacle figure in terms of progressing treaty settlements. And all the emotions that were around at the time were really, you could feel it in the house. But my maiden speech, as I say, was probably a speech that I was very proud of. I remember drafting it down at Hopu Hopu and asking Anne Parsonsons at the time to check it over to see if my English was any good. You know, so all these things are teaching moments along the way. So this podcast is a chance for me to reflect on that time, as I say, but also raise some of the issues that are still around today. Life after politics, is a really different story. And so we're going to traverse some of that through subsequent podcasts, how I'm thinking about issues of the day, how do we contest and raise issues in a healthy way amongst ourselves so that we can, yes, have different opinions, but actually unpack and unfold the things that matter to us, to our whānau, and in our community. So I'm hoping in future podcasts that we can bring in people who have lived experience, different views, who can test a view that might be well liked amongst our community. But the long and short end of it is I think we have to move beyond TikTok politicisation of issues and really deconstruct the things that are important, the nub of the issue, so to speak, and get to the guts of what the solution is. It's all good contesting viewpoints, but we have to have a solution and look towards what the future should be and how it can be more successfully brokered using all the tools that we have in our toolkit to advocate, to represent, to critique, but also to propose innovative solutions on the way ahead.